a leader, how to take care of the family. And then when you do that, you invest that in every fiber of your being. I mean, you really try to lead your family. So I'm a little boy and I try to do that. But what I found out, I was becoming a leader among my friends. I was becoming a leader when I played sports. And I played football, and I love football. And I think football did something very special for me because I became captain of the team, and then I always had to perform no matter what. And in performance, that means you do everything: the preparation, you get your, you make sure you do your exercises, you make sure you keep the team together, you find the pulse of what's going on with your colleagues on the team. Because if something's going wrong, then I have to work with you a little more because I need you at your top performance so we can win. Or even if we lose, I need you to be at your top performance. So you take this right into your adulthood. And in your adulthood, you grow up, your sisters grow up, everybody grows up. But one thing about leadership that we don't necessarily talk about is when you hit the fog. That's what I call it, the leadership fog. The fog where suddenly nothing's working for you. You don't know what territory you need to be in. You don't know how to really be there for somebody else. You're there for them in a physical way, but are you really being there? Well, on September in 2013, September 16, 2013, I lost a sister. And I really didn't know how that had affected me. And the way it affected me was in my leadership. Leadership at work, leadership in my community. In fact, all I did was go to work, come home, and I would stay in my home because I felt safe. I felt I could rebuild myself at a time that I was in emotional crisis, but I didn't know how to reach out. And as a leader, you want to be strong for everybody, but at times leaders have to reach out. And the first thing I did in reaching out, I went out and I made a phone call and I said, I need some help. And I got some therapy. I went to see a therapist, not me, tough guy. I'm a tough guy. I'm a real man's man, okay? But the thing was, I never got to really process my grieving. And in the point of processing grieving, you have to acknowledge a lot of things about yourself. I've always protected my family. I've always helped my friends. I've always stood up in my community. I always stood up in my job. And now I can't even stand up for me. And the reason I call this leadership in the raw, and I hope I'm not being nebulous for you at all, but what the raw is being able to be vulnerable and find that you are powerful in your vulnerability. There is nothing to hide. There's no fear of embarrassment. There is no fear that I'm weak. There is no fear that I can accomplish. But like all people, you got to stretch out. You got to ask for help. Now, we know Abraham Lincoln had depression. He struggled with that, but he was able to lead the country during a great time of great disruption, of great pain, and keep us together as a nation. So I read Abraham Lincoln. I needed something to be an anchor for me to rebuild through my pain, to touch those parts of me that needed to be touched. I thought about my father being from Edisto Island outside of Charleston, South Carolina, where they speak Gullah. And they still lived in buildings that the slaves used to live. He was born in a little hut. And here, he's a powerful man. 7 children, loving wife, and he's standing there. He's feeling pain as well as I am. So how can I help my father? Well, together we help each other. We talked. We took rides together. We talked about his life. I talked about things that he didn't know about me. And in that process, I have finally realized I had to set new goals, new objectives. And as a leader, we think of setting objectives for everybody else because I'm leading you. But in order to lead you, I have to lead me. Now, what does that mean, leading me? Well, it meant in setting these new goals, I had to acknowledge one thing. During this whole period of this fog, the thing that made me happy was sweets because I didn't feel I had any sweetness in my life. And so cakes, apple pie, I love apple pie, lemon meringue pie. Oh man, let me get one of them. Yeah. With my coffee in the morning, always having a sweet roll. But then I wasn't exercising. Well, I start one day, I get 2 days in. And as Teresa was talking about habits, I wasn't getting any habit forming activity going at all. So although I had a cue, I couldn't establish a new behavior in order to get me to do those things. So I got back involved in Toastmasters. Although I paid my membership, I wasn't really active. And then, of course, people show up in our lives to help us. Teresa showed up, and she saw something in me, because obviously how I lead is I listen to people, and I believe in transformation, because I believe that we are here as human beings to be great beings, to create, to give, to build. And I think a lot of times what happens is that we forget that. Because we think, oh, wow, Lavin, he's the only guy. He's great. He's phenomenal. I can't be like him. Or we say, Kim, she's great, phenomenal, but I can't be like her. But we all have gifts. We all have more than one gift. And we never develop them in order to contribute. We think to be exposed and people like you, no, they shouldn't like me too much. Or I'm not a snappy dresser. We have more negative conversation. And so when you're in the fog, that conversation expands. So Teresa, who's a go-getter, was getting my juices going again. And then I meet Mike. And Mike comes back to the United States. He's looking for a job. He's doing things. And he told me what he did and when he was outside the country. And I said, wow, okay. And the next thing you know, you begin to pull on the leadership of others to help you. Now, in America, we say the individual is important. When I was growing up, the individual is important, but I am because we are. It is the family. It is the community. So in an African-American life, it's you have more than one father. You have more than one mother. In military life, on military bases, growing up with all my friends, I had more than one mother and I had more than one father. Would it help me to understand I could go to them? Would it help me to understand that I can remove this fog? An extra hug, man hug from those powerful men that don't really give the hugs, but they're men. But they realize that I can help him, and I want to do that. What I'm sharing with you, you will always be a leader in everything that you do. But sometimes in being a leader, you have to acknowledge you're in a fog. Abraham Lincoln didn't hide his depression. Abraham Lincoln worked through his depression and shared it. He lost 2 children. His wife never recovered from the loss of her own children. And then when I thought I was just there, my mother passed last year. And when my mother passed, what the thing was for my mother was she never recovered from the death of my sister. She lost a child. She began to deteriorate. My mother never cried. My mother never acknowledged that she lost a child until 6 months later. All she ever said to me on that fateful day was to say, "Did I see the body?" And I said, "Mom, you don't see the body. See the body." And so my mouth's a little dry, so I'm just feeling I feel a little emotional at the moment. But what I want you to understand in that, my leadership grew even more. And it grew because I didn't want to give up. It grew because I felt I had more to offer. It grew because I was clear that I acknowledged. And the one last thing I did is I got me a coach. And I told my coach I was stuck. And my coach said, "I can help you." And of course he helped me. He said, "Write that check. I'll help you." Yes, I did write the check. But at the same time, I knew the coach and he was willing to help me. But the point is, as I look at all of you here, and I'm sharing my personal experience, I'm sharing with you, I'm up at 5 a.m. and the new habit is I am running 1 mile every day. And that was kind of hard. I used to be a runner, but I'm back to doing what makes me feel good. The second thing is I've been able to read in a way that when I read now is how can I use this information to share with you? Because I learned through this whole process, we are all born to die. Although we don't like to believe that, we are all born to die. But it's about your legacy. It's about putting your gifts. Because we know in science, electrons move around. When I grew up, electrons went around the whole nucleus, and they had so many electrons for each nucleus. But then you find out electrons are not like that. They're not static. They move. They're all over. And what they're always trying to do is to connect. And Toastmasters helped me to connect back to who I was. The people I met, they helped me to connect back. Having a loving family. So in the raw, I am now becoming that fine product again. That product that I think I can make more contributions to the people that I meet. This song we used to sing when I was a little boy in church. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Fellow Toastmasters, esteemed guests, let your little light shine and show your leadership. Oh.
Bobby, let the leadership shine, all of us. Now we'll go through the round robin evaluation in 30 seconds. We'll start from this side to this side. So, Ellen, don't mind.
Thank you.
Rajiv? Wow, you're sitting on that word. Huh?
Hey, hey.
Nobody used it.
Bobby, thank you for sharing your story. I know something like that can be very emotional because of it. You're able to maintain that. I think you did a fantastic providing language from kind of message that helped to make it memorable and like one recommendation I would make. I felt like I don't know if it's an unspoken message for people to focus on the guests a lot. I felt like we had a lot of communicating with the eye contact.
Yeah.
And maybe I sat on the other side of the room, the other side felt the same way or not.
Mm-hmm.
Sharing this a little bit.
Sure.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Andrea.
Just to dovetail that a little bit, just watch turning your back at all, even subtly. But one thing that I thought was just fantastic that no one said is you put humor in there in a heavy topic. People just really need a little break from the intensity. I love the Abe Lincoln quotes. They were fitting, and you connected and gave us background on him and his depression, and obviously referred to Civil War stuff.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim?
And I want to say, sorry for the loss.
Oh, thanks.
I really appreciate the subject as people who are in leadership, who have their moments of vulnerability, what we do. That was a very helpful subject.
Very good style and very helpful and very calm and very nice topic. I totally understand, and you're sharing your family problems and especially your mother.
Yeah.
And very thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so 3 words for you, Bobby. Fabulous, graceful, fantastic. You set the bar so high that I wish you were not so good because after you, I have to present. So great job. Thank you.
Thank you. So kind. I appreciate that. Right.
Bobby, excellent topic about leadership. I like the well you said about the topic. And also I like the way you connecting phrase. And the part that I need a little improvement is insert in the next presentation some kind of phrase that more verbal phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I get that kind of expression that the speech flows much better.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt. Mike?
Bobby, I thought your presentation came from your heart with passion. I thought you were very transparent, nebulous. Okay, but from my perspective, you're an excellent speaker. You know, there's nothing I can say negative about it, but my only suggestion that other people haven't mentioned yet is I think you set the bar too low on your time. Should have went up.
I had to do the 1 mile first so I could get the food.
But you take it up to 3, and you'll
Yeah.
progress that much faster. But at the same time.
Yeah.
Rajiv?
Thank you.
That's really so being able to speak, but every word that you say, you're lack of being the best case.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
2 most important takeaways for me. I love the way you incorporated points of pieces in your speech that really stuck out. And you made me to leadership of the people of love different. Because now I have to consider and sometimes they will well. I have to look at that.
Yeah.
Grace, you want to make a comment?
I think that this is how you say
Namaste. Namaste.
I recognize my inside you, and I think that every time I hear you talk, you go through it. And you inspire me. You said you can't. You did. I'm always inspired. I always think about you. When I see the blue heron,
Mm-hmm.
I always see a girl. You know what? These guys have a bit of wind. I have to look it up. And it was you. Mary's giving a competition.
Thank you,
The
Terry.
inspirational speech.
Yeah.
We do?
Yeah.
All right, Mary, you got our.
Oh, in the inspirational speech?
Yeah.
She's gonna be on February 16th.
Mary is the original. Okay.
All right, all right,
Okay.
all right.
All right.
Or Tracy being my contact.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bobby, I just want to add that the way you speak, we feel like we are in the upper seat to listen to you, because I noticed Kim, just leaning forward to listen to you. And obviously the content is fantastic. And I'll give you more feedback later on, but that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to our third speaker, who is Sumer.
Woo!
Yeah.
Sumer, what is the title? You didn't give me the title.
Okay, so it's probably my mistake because I'm thinking the title is the theme. So I prepared my talk based on the
Absolutely.
theme.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, great, lovely. So let me give you a little introduction.
Okay.
Sumer is a business coach and a corporate trainer. Through Toastmasters, he wants to learn and improve his public speaking skills and help others. Let me welcome Sumer, and the topic is hooked.
Yes. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, visitors. I will.
5 to 7 minutes, pardon me. Is
Okay.
it 5 to 7 minutes?
I hope so.
Okay. Sign up. Yeah.
So, fellow Toastmasters and visitors, I'll try my best not to be nebulous. We are all creatures of habits. Some of these habits are awful, addictive, but we need them, right? Without habits, there will be no discipline, no routine. And funny enough, when you think of habits and addictions, especially addictions, we associate addictions with something negative. So, for example, addiction of drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, selfies, right? But I'm here to tell you that addictions can be good. And some addictions are so necessary that if you don't have them, you will not be healthy. And to prove my point, I'll share a story of someone who influenced us positively to develop a habit which we practice till this day. Are you all interested? Okay, so far so good. So let me share the story, and it starts off with a crazy statistic. Did you know that back in early 1900s, only 7% of the American population used to brush their teeth? It's a true fact, not an alternate fact. You can check it online. And here's the interesting part. At that time, the American military, oral hygiene and dental disease, they called it a national crisis. And here's a surprising twist. Within a few years, American population started brushing their tooth to the extent the number rose from 7% to 65%. Wait a minute, 7% to 65% within a few years? Something must have happened, right? And what happened was, a famous company at that time, Pepsodent, a national toothpaste company, they were struggling with their sales and they didn't know what to do. So they reached out to this advertising guru, Claude Hopkins. Does anyone know this name, Claude Hopkins? Claude Hopkins, okay. 2 out of many, not bad. So they reached out to Claude and said, hey, listen, help us out. You want to sell more toothpaste and we've heard you're a genius, help us out. And Claude was like, toothpaste, it's medical, it's boring, I'm not interested. But then he changed his mind. He took it as a challenge and did a lot of research. And you know what, during his research, going through tons of boring and dry medical papers, he stumbled upon something, and this is very interesting. He stumbled upon a fact, which is very simple now, but at that time, he realized that when we eat stuff, there is a dirty yellow film which forms over our teeth, right? And when we use toothpaste like Pepsodent, not only we get rid of that film, but our teeth get whiter and shinier. And he was like, this is it. So he decided to play not on the health part of the toothpaste, and obviously on the beauty part of the toothpaste, because we all love vanity, right? So that's what they did. They had posters all over the country of attractive people with shiny teeth, and all because they used which toothpaste? Pepsodent. But here's the thing, this is what they did. How they did it is a totally different story. And let me use your card here. Are you okay with that? Okay. So for any habit to be formed, good or bad, we need this loop. So if I can involve you in this, so if you want to encourage someone to start using toothpaste, what would be the cue? Anyone? Sorry? The cue would be, if you want to encourage someone to, start using toothpaste, what cue would you use?
White tooth? White tooth?
Mhm. So the good smile would be the reward. What would be the cue? Will you close? The picture of possibly someone who has bad teeth.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's what they did.
Yeah.
So the cue was the yellow teeth, kind of like mine, Alia, my wife always tells me. And the reward was white teeth. Thank you very much. So white teeth was the reward. And the trick was, the routine, the behavior was brushing your teeth with Pepsodent. Thank you very much. So that's the habit loop which they used, which is very simple to us now, but back then, people had to do research. So the cue, the behavior routine, and the reward. Now, lastly, and to finish it off, I want to ask you this. Whenever you are trying to form a habit, and we all have our different challenges, how many people in this room find the cue part to be the challenging bit to start off a habit? Can I get a raise of hands? Okay, one or two. Okay. And how many of you find the routine or the behavior part as part of the challenge when starting a habit? Wow, lots of us. And finally, how many of you find the reward part to be the challenging part? None. Okay. So the answer is obvious, right? It's the routine, the discipline, the behavior which actually stops us from developing a good habit, right? And there are lots of ways of, starting a new habit. We all have our own thing. We all have our own way to motivate ourselves. But one thing I learned a long time back from one of my mentors, and she said it beautifully. Whenever you are stuck and whenever you're clear on the reward and the cue, and this is not happening, and things are getting tougher, just say this to yourself. And it works for me, and hopefully it'll work for you. And this is what I say to myself. Do not tell your God how big the storm is. Tell your storm how big your God is. So in conclusion, thank you very much, fellow Toastmasters and visitors, for giving me a chance. And thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sumer, for that habit. I mean, we are now getting the loop of creating habits now. Everybody stressing on that.
Yeah.
So now we'll go through the evaluation process. We'll start with, let's see, Mike. Can we start with you, please? And then we'll go this way. Okay. Okay, let's start with Mayana.
Sumer.
Sumer.
I like your topic about self-improvement and how you connect the first presentation with this one. Also, you use the word of day very well. And how you can improve a little bit slowly because
Okay.
when we are not here, when we wasn't born here, like me, like you, or whatever it
Yeah.
is, we try to go fast.
Thank you, Maina.
So sometimes we
Thank you, Maina.
separate.
Talk slowly. Thank you. Oh, I'm scared now.
All your topic is so good. I like it, and especially behavior and then reward.
Right.
It is good. Yeah, sometimes I am confused with behaviors and reward. It is good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alia. Kim?
Great topic, great story. And you have a lot of energy in front of the room. I would encourage a little less moving around.
Okay.
Because that can be distracting because you are all over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to confess, being general evaluator, I loved your speech, but I was looking at my notes, so someone may have said that, take your hand out of your pocket.
Oh, okay.
But just a great storytelling, and who knew?
Thank you.
Andrea?
Wonderful energy there. I think the use of Teresa's information there is great. Even the color coding for yellow, you can point to the light bulbs of white, to the rewards. That was nice. I do agree in terms of your body. That energy was there, but it's a little bit too much, a little distracting.
Okay.
But otherwise,
Yep.
Rajiv?
Yeah, Sumaya, this was a fantastic story, and the way you presented and the way you presented the audience was really great. You focused each and every one of the room, and to be able to get to the dots, right? Using tracer, people, personal life, and it was a very, very powerful tool. My only suggestion will be that when you just do that, just speak out a little bit slow and louder so that that can just drop the line.
Okay.
Thank you. Ning?
Yeah.
it's a great topic. Getting the first addiction, things we say.
Yeah.
How does that, how can we connect with them?
Mhm.
How can we think? And that's a great connection that we think. Then, as everybody mentioned, your going together and then about everything. And at the end, so as
Rajiv?
Rachel mentioned that you have a powerful ending, but I was thinking if you can just bring back the go up with
Okay.
Thank you. Len?
I have the one opposite direction of energy. I actually love the energy. Maybe it's the difference between us. You have stage energy to me. I don't know if it's different for being in this room, but I actually love the movement.
Thank you.
I owe $1,000.
Bobby?
Thank you.
Bobby?
Well, I haven't heard Pepsodent in so long. But you made it very clear why there's a toothpaste form, there's a mouthwash, or in terms of marketing. And what also you gave us some history, and you made us aware that we do this because we all want to have white teeth. And I also would like to suggest that your movement is a little more deliberate to emphasize your perspective.
Okay.
And definitely close out with a bang.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jenna?
It was great to hear your first speech with us. That was wonderful. And you did a great job for presenting. You have a great presentation style. Very good voice, inflection, nice presenting style. I enjoyed your voice and a little less movement.
Okay.
Think about standing in one space and then moving to another space and moving to another space.
Okay.
For your next speech.
Okay.
And see how you can try that out.
Okay.
Mike?
I love the total wrap up. Not only the way you I get I don't know questions, but everybody the two and that's true a lot of things that I don't sometimes. But when you took it back, I don't question. I don't and it inspired me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Living?
Thank you.
I was really fascinated with your speech on But I thought the taste was really good. The only thing that I had to suggest that's not is that we'll look back to the board like we use it for. But I saw your right leg do like hip hop up in the air.
Okay.
And that sort of detracted. I thought your energy was fabulous from that perspective. And as your timer, when I showed you the yellow, I saw you rushed into your closure,
Yeah.
which could have been a little bit more smooth and just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And it would have looked a little bit more effective from that perspective.
Sure.
Really nice job doing first speech.
All right. Thank you.
It sounded like you didn't speak well.
Thank you.
In conclusion, I'll just add.
Oh,
sorry.
oh, yeah.
sorry.
Well,
That was intentional. No, okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Great job.
Yeah.
So give yourself a great job.
Great job.
First speech,
Then I know.
I'm standing up. That
What
was my
I'm
first
saying is,
speech.
yes,
Oh, wow.
I would emulate what Bobby said, that it's not that you have the energy to move, but it's purposeful. That it's purposeful, because the energy is good.
Right.
You have great energy. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you use the board, you should pull forward
Sure.
rather than lost. And then the last thing is that when you need to pull it in,
Right.
Thank you, Terry. Sorry. Pardon me.
just say it slow and loud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Only thing I'll add,
All right, he's done.
only thing I'll add is, first of all, you are a great salesman. So that's your approach.
Okay.
And whether it's Pepsodent or forming a habit, and a lot of other things are said, but great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Teresa, when I saw this board you brought in, I was like, yes, because in the morning I realized I should have brought a board. So thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
If you look at the agenda, we have a break, but we'll not take a break because running behind. So I'll
We can each individually take a break.
right. You can take a mental break while you are sitting there. Maybe not. Maybe not, because we'll have the next we'll have table topics to deliver that. Help me welcome Jenna.
Hello. Hi. I'm taking a different approach to table topics today. Grace had asked for a time where we would get together and talk about how we had all found out about Toastmasters and how we had become a Toastmaster. And I had thought we could cover this in table topics. So we're going to cover that in table topics today. So think about how you found out about Toastmasters, what you overcame in your Toastmasters experience. And I may ask you about that, what your biggest fear was about becoming a Toastmaster, when you started with your Toastmastering, etc., how you found out about this club. And that is our background for Toastmaster table topics today. So the first question is, how long have you been a Toastmaster? Brahma Sen. Yes,
I've been a Toastmaster for over 10 years. I've been a member of Maryland Advanced, and then I'm a member of also Patuxent Toastmaster. I've also held many different roles, the club level roles as a treasurer in many clubs, and I have also been an area director, and also at the district I've been a sergeant at arms. So I've been a Toastmaster for a long time, and I enjoy every bit of it.
what is the reason that you came to Toastmasters? Myrna.
The reason okay. The reason that I enrolled as a Toastmaster because was a time of my life that I don't have anything to do. I was living in the Middle East. Women don't work, women don't do anything, and I said, I have to do something, and it's my time. So I enrolled in Toastmasters, and then I have activity every two, no, 3 times a month, and I interact with new people, and I love it. And I think has been so grateful for me, especially on my ability to communicate better and leadership. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Let's. Yes. How did you find out about Toastmasters, Andrea?
I went to a panel back at the University of Maryland University College of students who were on the working as interns in the federal government, and one of them talked about one of their experiences, and they mentioned Toastmasters. And I had no idea what that meant. I thought maybe, oh, I'm giving a toast. Here's my glass. And I first thought, you're in college, are you allowed to drink? And then I started doing some research and found out more about it. And I ended up joining the local Columbia Toastmasters Club. And I ended up co-founding the University of Maryland, here, the Turtle Toastmasters Club. And I've enjoyed it ever since. But I wanted to come back into it, not because I need something to do, but I felt like I want to add 10 more years to my life. Being part of the community, research says that helps actually improve how many more years you do that. And that's one piece, but also wanting to contribute more to my community. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
One more.
How did you find out about advanced Toastmasters? Ellen.
I found out about advanced Toastmasters by doing the search on the website. I was looking for a Toastmasters club, and I just plugged in my area, and then this one came up.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Good. How long have you been a Toastmaster, Mike? Mike June.
Or both mics.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I am coming up on 15 years as a Toastmaster. I went to my local library and a group of Toastmasters were holding a meeting, and I peeked my head in and I stayed, and they asked, was I coming back? And generally I would lie, but I knew I would see these people at the library again. So I said I would come back. I've never left.
Thank you all for your information. I'm glad to have you all as Toastmasters.
Thank you, Jenna. At this point, we'll move on to our evaluation portion of the meeting, and to deliver that, that is the grammarian report. So may I ask Kim to give us the grammarian report?
Yes. You may, because I have everybody else do this. And this is for any remote listeners, correct? So, the word of the day was used a number of times, and I thought this would be challenging given the topic of the day, the theme of the day. I have my own thoughts about that, but it worked out well.
You have to say who didn't say it. You have to say who didn't say it.
Who did not say it? Well, I did not say it. Dean did not say it. Mary did not say it. Ellen did not say it. I don't remember you saying that. Actually, it's easier to say, but it's easier to say we did. It really is. And it was used very well. Ums and ahs. We had some interesting demonstrations on how to do that. Actually, how not to do that. Some people actually seem to want to put an or an almost between every sentence. It's okay to not have any sound coming out. So if you're not sure what to say, don't say anything. I want to congratulate two people in particular. Myrna and Mike, who started, didn't insert one, but began with and then spoke, or and then spoke. There was no reason for that. You guys know that. I would also like to talk about one thing that I heard today that I really enjoyed as far as use of language, and that was from Bobby in his speech. He did something with threes, and he did some things with rhythm. I love rhythm, and I love that repetition. So, example, at one point he said, there was no fear that, one thing. There was no fear that, another thing. There was no fear that, the third thing. I thought was very effective. Talking about Abraham Lincoln, we did the same thing. Upgrade this, upgrade that, upgrade another thing. And it just brought that home, made it flow, made it rhythmic. And I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll have who said that report, Michael Jones. Come on up. All right.
This is the who said that. I'll look at it. I wrote a lot of it. I believe in transformation.
I did? Okay, I forgot.
I recognize the light inside of you.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
I'm a reader. Very reader.
Oh.
I am because we are.
Oh, that's funny.
We all love that. And one more. But I could not stand up for myself.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Next, we'll have timers report. Mike. Mike.
Hello, Toastmasters, distinguished guests. I'm Toastmaster Michael Sanders. Welcome. I'm here to give the timers report. And really the function of the timing report is to make sure that the meeting starts on time. And it did, exactly at 10:15 with Teresa. And as a series of speeches went on, we all enjoyed them very much. Bobby's speech was 14 minutes and 17 seconds. So he made it on time from that perspective. Samir, his time was between 5 and 8, 7 minutes?
5 to 7.
Yeah. He came in at 6 minutes and 9 seconds.
Woohoo!
We'll not talk about theories, right?
Don't even talk about mine.
Okay. We'll move on going forward from that perspective. Irna, for the table topics, you came in at 1 minute and 5. You're supposed to speak between 1 and 3 minutes. Andrea?
1 and 2.
1 and 2? I thought it was 3.
1 and 2/3. Right?
1 and 2, and then you have 30 seconds of grace period.
Okay.
Andrea, you need to speak a little bit more. You came in at 55 seconds. Was a little bit quick, but you did a nice job in the presentation. And Mike, likewise, 22 seconds. That was really very quick. So the purpose of it is really for you to speak extemporaneous so that you can move the process and think very freely. So if you need to be more nebulous in your thought process, go for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Now we have the arms report and helping to welcome Ning for that. Okay. So yeah. Well, you are doing it.
Right, tell
Well, no.
everybody what it's all about.
Yeah, so why don't you tell what it is and then go around the
Toastmasters. Okay, Brahma, tell what it's about.
Okay. So this is a fun way we kind of try to bring
okay.
fun into the meeting. It's not, and we ask people to contribute 25 cents just quarter just for fun, and we try to pick something nice or something funny about the first individual.
It's
So
fun.
and it's a fun.
Pretend to be like a
Yeah,
fun.
it's pretended to be a fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ning was late, so so she get $1, but we can give 25 cents, so that's all. And we generally exclude guests for contributing.
I need that money. I got 3 kids. So just go around and find people.
Yeah. And now we are done with our agenda of the meeting. I'll invite our member Jenna to do planning for the next meeting.